Good evening and thanks for joining us. In the span of just 2 weeks, there's been a transformation in the discussion around racial injustice and policing in the United States and around the world, all of it driven by the reaction to the death of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police. In Washington today, lawmakers began hearings on a proposal for sweeping legislation to improve policing, eliminate racial profiling, and police brutality. The first witness was Philonise Floyd, who just yesterday buried his brother, George.
I'm tired. I'm tired of pain. Pain you feel when you watch something like that. When you watch your big brother, who you looked up to for your whole life, die begging for his mom. I'm here to ask you to make it stop.
Jackson Proskow on the calls in Washington to make policing part of the solution and not the problem.
Less than 24 hours after George Floyd was laid to rest,
What do you hope to tell the committee today?
his brother, Philonise, faced lawmakers in Washington, pressing them to ensure a lasting legacy comes from this moment of national grief.
It is on you to make sure his death is not in vain.
After 2 weeks of protest, the first hearing on police reform took a hard look at the treatment of Black Americans.
We must acknowledge that law enforcement's past contains institutional racism, injustices, and brutality.
There were questions about how far to go as calls to defund police grow louder. Angela Underwood Jacobs' brother, a federal officer, was killed as protests turned violent last week in California.
It is a ridiculous solution to proclaim that defunding police departments is a solution to police brutality and discrimination, because it's not a solution.
The debate is raging across the U.S. In Minneapolis, where George Floyd died, the police chief suddenly called off contract negotiations with his officers. The city has already voted to dismantle its police force.
I plan to bring in subject matter experience and advisors to conduct a thorough review of how the contract can be restructured.
In New York, where 350 members of the NYPD were injured in days of violent protests, and where an officer was just charged with assault for pushing a protester, the police union lashed out.
Stop treating us like animals and thugs, and start treating us with some respect. We've been left out of the conversation. We've been vilified. It's disgusting.
Back in Washington, the Trump administration is reportedly weighing an executive order on police reform that could bolster legislation proposed by Democrats, all aimed at improving police accountability.
If officers know they have immunity, they act with impunity.
In this moment of reckoning, few dispute the need for change. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.